Schalke. Oh, they've done it! Steven Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und Weiß ein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan. How we doing, Jack?
Doing all right, sir. May I say the hair looking lovely this evening. Look at the flow that Richard's got going on. Beautiful. I'm glad we're doing this on YouTube and not audio only, so people can revel in the majesty that I'm seeing at the moment. But I'm doing all right. Excitement in the chat immediately off the bat. There we go.
Yeah,
love to see that. Hey, I'll tell you what though. Not a Victory Monday pod. Haven't had any of those this season so far. No. One of only 4 teams in the Bundesliga without a win in the first 5 games. But the good news is we're not in the relegation zone, at least yet, kind of. So there's that. That's kind of where we stand at the moment.
Good evening to Jacob and Eric in the chat. Good to see you guys, as always. And if you're in the chat, let us know where you're listening in from. And if you're a Stuttgart fan, let us know, because we have a guest tonight joining us all the way from Ohio, in between Jack and I. Stuttgart Americana. We're bringing on Travis. They have a podcast over there. You know what? I'm not going to talk too much about his podcast because I want him to do all the talking. He's a better voice than I do. So welcome to the show, Travis.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I heard something about no teams with any wins, and I thought I just had to enter the chat here.
Well, it's nice. Misery loves company, so thank you for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right, Travis, well, tell the listeners, hopefully my voice stays in because it keeps going in and out, it seems like, but let the listeners know about you and your Stuttgart Americana podcast you got.
But the less interesting part is my name is Travis, and there's 3 or 4 of us that are involved in the podcast, and Matt in Michigan, my brother Austin in California, and Jeff in California as well. And during the COVID year, we thought, what the world needs? The world needs a Stuttgart fan podcast all the way from the States, from a bunch of guys who don't know anything about football, the Bundesliga, and Stuttgart. So the 4 of us got together. We made a podcast together, and it's called VfB Stuttgart Americana, and we're super excited. We've actually started an official fan club as well that's all but approved by the club, and a bunch of us are going to head to Austin, Texas in November to check out the club. So if you are into uninformed and unintelligent conversation about VfB Stuttgart, then give us a listen, because we're your podcast.
That's what we're all about here. I mean, that's what we provide as well. So there you go.
Awesome. That's awesome. What I love about you guys too is that you guys promote all the English speaking podcasts or Bundesliga heads here in the States and Canada. So, without you guys, I wouldn't have known about all the other great podcast groups that are here, like the Werder Bremens and the who else you got, Bayern Munich, and so on and so forth. So kudos to you for spreading the love of the Bundesliga.
I appreciate that, but this is more like one of my professors in college said when I turned in a paper that looked like somebody else's paper. We're more plagiarizing from everybody else. We checked you guys out. You guys are fantastic. Hey, Eintracht is fantastic. The Bremen guys are hilarious. Neverkusen is out there. There's a new one, the FC overhaul, I believe it is, for FC Cologne fans. So it's a really great group of people that just have the same love for the same thing, and that's the Bundesliga. So it's great to reach out to all those groups.
Yeah, I think we have enough, Premier League and La Liga fans in the States anyway. It's nice to kind of try to grow the Bundesliga brand a little bit and, spread the love for this league, because it's great. And honestly, we weren't happy to be in this fighted Bundesliga last season, but that's a great league as well. And we really enjoyed, watching that and experiencing that too. So there's a lot to love in German football, and glad to be a part of it. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, I hope that's not a segue into where both of our clubs are headed.
Hopefully not.
We'll see.
But no, since we talked about it, we want to know your thoughts on Stuttgart coming to this season. Obviously, we coming from the Zweite Liga, we had different intentions this year, but curious on your thoughts after the season you had last year, and what were your expectations or hopes for this season coming, as you went into it?
Well, our season, like most people know, came down to the last match day. And I think my neighborhood can still hear me cheering at the 94th minute when Endo scored the winner against Cologne. So we knew we were going to lose a number of players. Orel Mangala, who drove the midfield. Sasha Kalajic, who, scored us many goals up front. And Borna Sosa were the three guys that we thought we would lose. So we just assumed the club would be a lot different. And I think Sven Mislintat, who's in charge of, he's the director of sport, in charge of getting players, said it perfectly. And I love this. Is such a German phrase, is 13th place is our first place. And you can't say that in any other, at least American sport, and not get fired immediately. But I think so we're 12th place now. We'll talk about, what that looks like later. But our goal is to finish probably, let me put it this way. When we did on our podcast, a preview of the season, we kind of broke it down to the top 6, middle 6, and the bottom 6. Our goal was to be somewhere in the top of the last 6. So somewhere around that 12, 13. I think we've got the talent to do it. We're running into the same issues we ran into last year. And then you see clubs like Bremen and Schalke who are just coming up, and you're like, well, they might struggle, but they're doing all right. So.
Yeah, I think 13th would probably be our first place as well this season, given everything. I think Richard and I have been talking about is my only goal for our season this year was to stay up and try to, reestablish a foothold in the Bundesliga and not get into some sort of yo-yo situation. Obviously, the financial realities in the background for Schalke make that especially important as well. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, what I want to ask you guys is I think being a Schalke supporter and a Stuttgart supporter is somewhat similar in that we come from very history-rich clubs who have had a lot of success in your guys' case internationally, in our case domestically. And I think it's really difficult for clubs like ours to wrap our heads around this new reality that we may be, like you said, more of in the yo-yo situation than we want to admit, just because based on our history and our tradition. So when you guys, that's what I kind of was interested about you guys, when you headed back up to the first league, did you have aspirations of immediately finishing the top 9, or were you just like, listen?
I mean, Richard may be different than me because Richard likes to project us to finish first every season, no matter what happens historically. But like I said, for me, my only goal, like if we stayed up, that was a successful season for me. There's a lot of squad overhaul last year, obviously going into the second division, a lot of squad overhaul again. This year we've lost Malik Chow now, in addition to Ozan Kabak and Itakura. Kabak obviously not really involved last season as much, but two mainstays at center back for us on the way out. So there's definitely issues there, and I think we have a good enough squad to stay up. But I think we all need to be very realistic about the situation the club's in at the moment, the financial constraints that are in play, and like I said, the most important thing for us is just to remain in the Bundesliga, try to establish a foothold, and hopefully we can fight our way back up to the higher places of the table. But it's a brave new world at this point. This is not the situation we were in 10 years ago.
And I'm no fool either. I'm not going to go and predict we're going to win the Bundesliga again. But my goal was, like Jack says, just to stay in the league. If we finish, somewhere mid-table, that's a fantastic year, honestly, considering where we came from. But to stay in the league and hopefully not be in a relegation battle at all, that's the goal. Anything more is a cherry on top. Anything less is the yo-yo you mentioned. So it's I don't know. So do you feel, because you guys had a little bit of yo-yo yourself, do you feel now that you're kind of got a staple hold in the Bundesliga, or are you still worried about that yo-yo effect?
I'm crazy scared of this. It's funny. It's when I had my first child, we were relegated. And then we came back up. And then I had my second child, and we were relegated again. And I told my wife, it's like, listen, we can no longer, for the sake of Germany and Stuttgart, we can no longer have children. And look at me. She was okay with that. But it was weird because 2 years ago when we came up, the year that you guys were being relegated, we were everybody's darling. Everybody loved, watching Silas and watching Kalajic and Borna Sosa and Gregor Kobel. The first half of the season, we were playing really well. And then the second half of the season, I think people figured us out a little bit. We had some injuries. And then last season, while you guys were in the Zweite Liga, we were just a disaster. And we lost, I think it was the second most players due to COVID and to injury in the entire Bundesliga. And so you were never able to put your thumb on what is it that is not letting us have success. And so you're like, well, I'm excited for this season. We survived by the skin of our teeth. And it's almost the same thing over again. The late transfer window led to some late, Kalajic leaving late, some new players coming in. So you don't really know where the club's at. And I think that's the most frustrating thing as the Stuttgart supporters. We love the youth that we have. We love the direction that we're taking. But because of the injuries and because of the COVID and because of the late transfer, we've never been able to really, truly figure out what this club is like. And so going into a match against Schalke, who is a game that most Stuttgart supporters thought that we could get 3 points out of, you're still really nervous because you don't know what your club has, because the last 18 months, it's just been all over the board.
So talk to us briefly, if you can. You don't have to get too granular here, but just thoughts on Moderato in general as a manager, because I know that, from the American perspective, there's a lot of interest. Obviously, he's lived in Germany for quite some time consistently, but born in New Jersey. There's that, sort of dual national aspect to it, or whatever you want to say. What can you tell us about the way he likes to set up his team, the things he's trying to do, and sort of your general impressions of him so far? Not on the bench this past weekend due to suspension. We saw Sven Mislintat jump up and get involved at one point pretty angrily about a Drexler tackle. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's not a Stuttgart game unless somebody gets a red card and gets booted out. So we're just going to start next week down 10 and let Bayern, go at it.
Maybe we'll get one back during the course of the match. You start with 10, you'll get one on it.
I know. It works so far. I would say this. I think Stuttgart supporters, by and large, are in love with Pellegrino, Moderato, and Sven Mislintat. We love that they're playing youth. We love that they let the kids make mistakes. As a Stuttgart supporter, we've gone through a number of managers over my fandom over the last decade. And now Pellegrino is the fourth most tenured manager in the Bundesliga. And when you tell a Stuttgart supporter that, it blows their mind, because we go through managers like crazy. The team has been very analytical, and the team has been very his background is mathematics. And the knock on him has been kind of passion and in-game changes. But we've seen that definitely change this season. And I think it's a nice kind of when you let a manager or a coach actually grow, you will see bumps in the road, but you'll see improvement. That's what we're seeing with Pellegrino, Moderato. This goes back to what I said earlier, is because of the injuries and because of the late transfer, I don't think we have a full picture of exactly what Pellegrino, Moderato can do, because even though he's got a really talented roster, which most Stuttgart supporters would believe, it seems like he's always hamstrung by a silly red card or COVID or an injury. And this may sound like an excuse, and maybe it is, but he plays very aggressive football. We give up about 1.5 goals every game while he's been manager, so we're going to go for it. But we usually score a lot of goals, and when we were having success early, that's what was happening. But over the last 20 matches or so, whether it's bad luck, bad finishing, we haven't been able to get those goals in. But by and large, you ask anybody who's wearing a Bruce string, the red stripe, we love Reno, we love Sven. We just need some results. And at the end of the day, if we can just get a couple results, that's why the Bremen match was hurt so much, because if we're sitting with 6 points or 8 points, the conversation is completely different than what it is right now. So we love Reno. We just want to get some results. Let me flip it back to you guys. I mean, there was rumors going into the match against us that if you guys got 0 points out of that you might be looking for a new manager already.
Yeah.
Well, I think Ethan at Tedesco time would be happy with that. I think he has his whole thing targeted already in terms of the date. But we did see Rovan Schroeder come out after the match and make some positive comments about Crawmer, but comments that seemed somewhat reminiscent of comments he made about Gramatsis when he was initially defending Gramatsis prior to that thing happening. So, I do think, and Richard, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on it. I don't know. I mean, Schalke's fired so many managers given the financial situation. I think we want to limit the financial liability that we're paying for coaches. We're kind of hoping that maybe Balcom fires their manager and Gramatsis gets hired or something along those lines, because that would get him off of our payroll. So that might be holding things up to some extent. But I mean, you look at a lot of the underlying statistics for us this season, and we're near the bottom of the table. We're bottom of the table in a lot of categories. You could say that we're underperforming our XG going forward. Maybe that balances out over the course of the year, but I think we have the lowest success in terms of pressing, the lowest success percentage of pressing in the league. We have 70% pass completion right now as a whole. Really struggling to build out of the back. I think we have some of the fewest shots on target in the league as well. I mean, there's a lot of metrics, both, going forward and defensively, that aren't particularly great at the moment and don't speak well to what Crawmer's trying to implement. So, I think this Stuttgart match was potentially a missed opportunity in some ways for Crawmer specifically. I mean, the club in general, with the way the match played out in the red card that ultimately, and we'll get into that a little bit, but I think he needs to get some results quickly. As I mentioned up top, Stuttgart and Schalke, two of only 4 teams in the league right now that are winless through 5. It's a results-driven business. You love hear people saying that, but as you said, a couple wins and suddenly the narrative can change kind of quickly.
And it's like you said, Travis, how it's just, going to this game, you guys obviously thought that you guys could get 3 points from us. We kind of had the same feeling that we could probably get 3 points from you. Not that it's taking anything from Stuttgart, but it's not the Bayerns of the world, and we know that Dortmund, the Riviera Derby, is just 2 games away, and we had 2 games to right our ship, right? The 6-1 drubbing at Union Berlin, embarrassing. The scoreline may have been flattering, but we had 2 games between Stuttgart and Bochum. If we didn't have positive results, possibly a max of 4 points or a minimum of 4 points through those 2 games, you might be looking at Crawmer's head, right? You don't want to go to the big derby backing in. And granted, most of these derbies, any big derby in the world, form goes out the window. Schalke knows that better than anybody, but you can't afford this early in the season to be in a relegation zone looking as terrible as we have. And Werder and us, you mentioned them, we both came up this year and we have completely different 180 styles of attack. Werder attacks. We sit back, let everyone attack us, and we have one of the lowest possessions percentage of the league thus far. Not only passing bad, but we let the other team just take the ball. I mean, this last game against you guys is the only time we ever went over 50% in passing, which is or possession, I should say. So it hasn't been great thus far, but we'll see. We'll see how Bochum goes.
Shall we get into this one then?
Yeah. Let's get into this here. Obviously, the game 1-1, we drew. I guess it's an okay result for both of us. I think we're okay with the draw. Are you guys okay with the draw against lowly Schalke?
I don't think anybody here on this podcast can begrudge anybody else right now. Yeah. Especially the way the game played out. I mean, whenever you go down a man, which we do a lot now, you got to be happy to get a point out of that. Yeah. I was reading the Kicker review of the match, and they do a great job of analyzing Bundesliga matches. And they gave it on their rating, 1 being the best, 6 being the worst, they gave it a 4. And I disagree. I didn't think it was that bad of a match. I thought the first half there were chances all over the place. Silas just was playing fantastic. Egloff had a couple shots for us. Dino had a nice header that your goalie was able to save. So I didn't think the first half was that bad. I think the second half really bogged down quite a bit. And especially once the red card happened, things got kind of crazy a bit. I didn't think it was that bad. I think it was 2 winless teams who knew they were winless, who knew they had a chance to get points, who initially were going at it. But then as the match went on more and more, we're kind of like, maybe a point's okay.
Yeah, calculus changes, fear kind of creeps in, a lack of confidence, especially Schalke, I think, off of that 6-1 result, concerned about maybe conceding despite the man advantage at the end.
I saw the stats for that 6-1 loss, and I'm sorry that, like you said, the match wasn't representative of the score there. Right. And if not for Terodde, who we love, missing 2 penalty kicks in one match, you guys have 3 points in a win already. And so I was really worried going into this one. I just thought playing at home, our roster versus your guys' roster, I liked our chances quite a bit. I thought the first half was fair. I thought it was pretty fair back and forth. And I think the second half, to answer the question the long way to get to a short answer, is I think we were lucky to get the point. And, we're well on our way to 33 points. 0 wins, 33 draws, and 1 loss. So that's got to be a record somewhere.
As long as we get 40 points, I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Yeah. So now you guys obviously lost Kalasic as a striker, who we are very familiar with. Is Silas the one expected to pick up the slack, or who do you think from your starting 11? Because I'm looking at your starting 11, and I'm trying to look at the danger man. Obviously, Endo is someone who we are very familiar with. Furish, all Schalke fans know who he is. But, Amadas had a good start to the season, I think, and I would guess Silas would be the guy who would pick up the slack, maybe Egloff. thoughts on who could really replace that torch that Kalasic is going to be leaving, going to West Ham or wherever?
At this point, it's going to be number 14, Silas. He's the guy. And I think it's interesting that you see this in the NFL a lot in the United States, where you think, okay, what player on the other team scares the defense, on offense? And I'm looking at the roster right now, and as much as I know these guys, I can imagine that if you're a Schalke supporter, you're like, I'm not too scared of this. Kalajdzic is gone. Yeah, I know Borna Sosa. But outside of that, there's not. So I think the biggest issue for Stuttgart is going to be, can they find somebody to help Silas? Because Silas looked really well during this match.
Yeah.
He just wasn't able to get the finishing. We have some younger kids.
Didn't have a lot of support at times, despite getting in behind. Like, not a lot of runners with him, and didn't have, because a lot of times he was the one receiving passes into the final third, rather than kind of being the guy in the end product trying to get the shot away. And there weren't enough people, in my opinion, kind of with and around him to play off of once he got some of those opportunities in behind.
And I think that's the concern, is that a lot of what we do seems to play off individual brilliance, and as opposed to, in the past, it was Borna Sosa, cross, Sasha Kalajdzic, header, goal. Everybody celebrates. And everybody knew it, but that's what we did. I think it's an exciting time as a Stuttgart supporter, trying to figure out, okay, what is the new reality going to be for this team? Silas is definitely a talent, but he can't do it by himself, like you said. And that's part of the problem. Thiago Tomas, who you guys didn't see much at all in this match, is coming off tonsillitis. Lilian Egelhoff was only able to play 60 minutes, and he's a stud, but he's injury prone all the time. Borna Sosa was only able to play 60 minutes, but he has abductor issues all the time. So a long story short, I think Silas is going to be the guy who's going to score. I'm kind of excited that Gerasi is coming from the French league via Cologne. I think he's matured. I think he can help on the wing. And kind of be, like you said, that kind of support player there a little bit. But it's funny, we don't have a true striker like you guys have in Simone. And it's going to take us some time to figure that out, where I think you guys have your guy. It's just a matter of is he Bundesliga quality, and can you get him the ball enough for him to do what he did on Saturday?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a true question there. And Jack, looking at our lineup was interesting, to say the least. Pretty much, well, it's not the same lineup. Look at the back four, is completely different. Well, a little different. Sepp Vandenberg, the new man who just joined the team from Liverpool, who had maybe 2 practices with him, is in the starting lineup out of necessity. I'm surprised Leo Grimo didn't get the start in this one. I'm not sure what's going on there. In the midfield, Flick inserted into the midfield, holding midfielder role. You had Larson getting his first start, and Drexler playing the attacking 10 position that Salazar normally holds. Thoughts on the lineup in this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, flicking the lineup, add a trophy to the SchalkeMerica trophy cabinet. We love that. Yeah, Malik Chow sold to AC Milan very late in the window. I think, going into the season, we expected that we would probably sell 2 of the 3 of Kabak, Chow, and Itakura. I don't think we expected to necessarily lose all 3 of those. Yeah. So Vandenberg obviously is going to have to be a significant contributor this season. I was surprised, as you were, however, that he was thrown into the fire immediately. I think Kaminsky's still hurt, correct?
Yes.
So that is probably a contributing factor. But, I mean, Vandenberg was at the club for less than a week before getting a start. So I kind of want to not be too hard on him for his performance this match, but did not have a good game overall, both kind of on the offensive end and the few chances that he had around the box, and then particularly obviously defensively. So that was strange. I think Zalazar, we need to, he can get worn out because he runs a ton and that kind of thing. So I'm fine with having him come on as a super sub occasionally to kind of keep him fresh and try to keep him healthy, because he's going to be an important contributor. Drexler, as we said last year, is I think a little bit underrated in terms of the value that he provides on the pitch at times. He kind of is a little bit like, he's just not like the star man that people look for, but he's a big contributor. I thought it was interesting that Larson's still out wide, gets his first start as well. I'm interested to hear your thoughts when we get a little bit deeper into the match, but kind of a mixed performance from him as well too. So interesting starting lineup. There's still some guys that we're getting a look at. I think the thing that we can really kind of hold on to at this point is that Tom Kraus, Bolter, and Brunner and Oweyan are probably going to be mainstays in the squad for most of the season, I would imagine.
Yeah, hopefully the injury to Thomas Oweyan isn't too serious, because he went out and we got to see Tobias Moore, who did well in the game, I think. But You mentioned Sepp Vandenberg and had an assist early on in the game. Unfortunately, it was to Silas. I don't know what he was doing there. Young guy, he read the play well, but the first touch was poor. Gave it right to Silas. Silas found Furish, who put it away past Yoshida. Got a little bit on it, but got past Schwoloff. Early 1-0 lead. And Jack and I talked about how on the live stream how we didn't want to go down to you guys because we saw how you guys played against Cologne last week, and we thought you played fairly well. And if you get the lead on us early, it could be lights out for us early. And 18 minutes in, you guys get a goal there. You had to have been happy, Travis, to see that early goal, that error that led to that goal, I should say, too.
I'm not going to lie. I thought we were going to roll you guys at that point. We predicted, most of us on our podcast predicted a 3-1 victory. And we all wanted Simone to score because we love Terodde. But we wanted him to score, obviously, in a loss. So we wanted it to be 3-1 just so he could get his first goal in the Bundesliga. But once we got that early goal, because we've been giving up early goals, and once we got that early goal, I thought we would just be able to sit back, counterattack you guys to death, and Silas would be able to get another goal at some point. And I wasn't really able to even go to the refrigerator to crack open another beverage before I come back. And part of our dreams came true. Torodde scored, but it didn't end in the way that I wanted it to end.
Jack, go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying, I mean, yeah, the Silas, I thought obviously we talked about he had a very impressive performance in this game, kind of reminiscent of Marcus Thuram on Malik Chow, actually, in terms of the fact that how much he was bullying Yoshida. I mean, clear pace difference there in terms of, the aging legs of Yoshida. He was kind of exposed a little bit too much in this one, which isn't entirely his fault. Like that play, we said it was a poor touch from Vandenberg, that kind of a thing kind of comes out of nowhere. But yeah, it's a terrible way to go down early with a mistake like that, especially from the young kid who's coming in. I mean, it's not the way that he wants to start. I feel bad for him for that. Yeah, I mean, there's far too often this season already. We have created goals for the opposition, whether it's Schwoloff just completely mishandling aerial balls in the box for no reason, or plays like that. It's the thing that we always say on this podcast over and over is make teams beat you. And that first goal for Stuttgart, the only goal really for Stuttgart, was an example of we didn't give them a goal. They still had some stuff to do. Nice finish ultimately. Nice play to finish that off, but a chance that's created through an error in our back four.
It was funny though. It's the year that you guys were relegated when you let up a goal, the floodgates opened up, and you could see it. I unfortunately have been a supporter of a team that's been relegated twice in the last 7 or 8 years, and their body language completely changes. You can see a team that doesn't believe, and with this team, I don't buy that. I really liked. Is it Bolter?
Yeah.
Okay, he got better as the match went on. Simone Terodde, we can have an argument whether he's a Bundesliga player or a Vita League player, but he's a hard-working player. Drexler is a hard-working player. Yoshida is a hard-working. So that's where I get frustrated all the time because you see teams like Union Berlin, where you're like, how are they so good? It makes no sense. Or Werder Bremen, how are they good? It makes no sense. But there's a mentality aspect I think those teams have that my club unfortunately lacks right now. And what you guys had, especially as the match went on, I know that it only ended in a draw, was there wasn't this, oh, what was me thing. Now, I know it's early. It's only 4 matches in. But I think we've both seen our respective clubs go through that in the past. And it's not, and hopefully this isn't offensive, it's not like the Schalke team that you guys have is super talented. I don't think anybody looks at that roster and is like super impressed. But we can see with Bremen, we can see with Union Berlin, we can see with Freiburg. I mean, teams that have rosters that initially you're not super excited about, and yet you look at the records and they're significantly more impressive than ours were. So what I was really impressed with you guys was Bolter seems to get so much better as the match went on. He was making Hikori Ito, who's really come on as a really strong Bundesliga defender. He was making him look just out of sorts the last 10, 15 minutes of that match. And Salazar had 2 fantastic opportunities with seconds left. One was just out of his reach. The other one was a lucky deflection off a Stuttgart player. And that's why, go back to the question you asked earlier, is like, it was a lucky point. And, I'll take it. You got to stack those up. But if I was you guys, this isn't the Schalke of old. If they have that kind of mentality, I think good things can happen, at least enough to finish, 13th is our first.
Well, yeah, Bolter's certainly the guy to shout out when you talk about mentality. Richard and I always comment almost every podcast about the various faces that he's making at times. And like, kind of how like we love having him on the team, but he's the kind of player you probably hate playing against just because he's just like got that edge to him for 90 minutes.
He was in every fight in the game. He was in the middle of it, which you love to see for us, not for you guys. But the mentality you talked about was like last year. This is the first time we saw it in a long time where we go down a goal and we just got stronger and stronger as the game went on. And what we saw in this, you guys scored and immediate reaction. And like Jack and I were talking about before the game or during the game is that Drexler in that 10 position was kind of weird to us. But as soon as that goal happened, Drexler kind of just exploded and created two great chances before that Simon Terodde goal. Eventually got the nice pass from Kraus and then a dinky pass past the defender, and then Terodde put it away, which we would love to see as well. We want to see the big man get off the score sheet. So, in immediate response from Schalke, and I agree with you. I think that's the mentality that we kind of living off from last year. Yes, it's a new manager, but the core is the same. And all those guys just kind of rally around the difficult times and put the best foot forward, I should say. And Union Berlin last game was a microcosm, I think, of all this, a blip on the radar. But I think what we saw against Stuttgart was immediate reaction back. And I thought we played pretty well for the game on the most part. I think.
Yeah, the two things that stood out to me and the two questions I have for you guys is, so Simon Terodde scores his first goal of the season in the Bundesliga. And he has to be going through the roof emotionally. But he had played for Stuttgart before, and there's that unwritten rule, right? That when you score against your old club, you don't celebrate. And I thought it was really impressive, the amount of just emotional intelligence or the ability of him to kind of control it to where he had to be going through the roof getting his first goal. But he did not celebrate a lick in that. And he won not that he needs any more support from Stuttgart supporters because he's beloved by us, but he won even more support just keeping that under control. So that guy, I was so happy for him to get his goal. The big talking point in the Stuttgart camp was Drexler, actually. I think it was around the 70-some minute mark where he was getting subbed out and he had the foul, and Sven Mislintat got a yellow card because he was
nuts. Yeah, on the sideline. Yeah.
We love Sven. We love Sven. So he's kind of our just a representation of all of us.
He's our Mike Buskins.
He's going bananas, and he wants Drexler to be get his second yellow, so that now it's 10 against 10 with about 15-20 minutes left in the match. And from the Stuttgart perspective, you have this really uncomfortable discussion where it's kind of like, okay, the refs are out to get us again, and my perspective on that is, I thought the yellow card on Wagnermann in the 70th minute that got him, or 60th minute that got him his second yellow that got him pulled off. I'm totally fine with that. If they call the one on Drexler later, I guess that was where my "woe is me," go get the zebras comment was. I'm curious as to what you guys thought about Simone scoring the goal but not celebrating, and then the Drexler non-call.
Well, I'm not surprised that he didn't celebrate. We saw Bulter against Union Berlin, his former team. He didn't celebrate as well. And it's like you said, he's got to be going through the motions because it is his first goal. He needed it. He had two misses at the penalty spot last week that could have changed the game. And
bad penalties too, like bad takes, penalties. like not well saved, just like bad attempts, shockingly bad
shots. And then he kept composure and scored. He knows that one's not going to be enough. He's got to keep scoring, right? And I'm glad he didn't celebrate either. And then also the Drexler thing, should he get sent off? Probably. Look at the replay. He got contact, and he probably should have been sent off. But it may have helped Schalke because I think Schalke actually got worse when we got the man advantage. And you see this with teams all the time when the team gets down to 10 men. Sometimes they play really well, and sometimes not. You guys played really well once you went down to 10 men. Maybe it's part of that "woe was me" part of thing, but. If anyone knows about the "woe is me," it's Schalke too, right? We always feel everyone's against us. Every call is going against us so far this year, except for that one. So we know what you're talking about. But I think Drexler probably could have got sent off, and the manager, Frank Crawmer, knew that and yanked him right away. Jack, I'm curious to your thoughts on that play.
Yeah, so Simon Terodde, first of all, the one thing that Richard and I were so excited last season to have a striker for once. And we can talk about whether or not it's going to translate to the Bundesliga, whether the second division, particularly at this point in his career with his age, is the more appropriate home. for a guy like Terodde. But, one of the things that always struck me last season was he's a guy that just knows where the goal is constantly. He doesn't have to pick his head up to find the corner. And I think that goal was a great example of it. He's making his run, and the ball comes in from Drexler. It's a beautiful ball from Drexler, but Terodde doesn't pick his head up to find it. He just immediately knows, where to hit it. And it's those kind of like cool collective finishes that we had been so starved for over the past years, kind of post Huntelaar. We just didn't have a consistent, talisman up front that Terodde was able to provide last season. So finally having him get on the score sheet and in that kind of manner with, it's very much a striker's goal in my opinion. I really enjoyed that one. And I'm sure there's plenty of fans that would say the sanctimony about, not celebrating, screw it, everyone, celebrate whenever you can. I tend to agree with you more and say that I tend to appreciate it when players show a little bit of, deference or whatever for former clubs. So yeah, I appreciate that as well. And as far as Drexler goes, yeah, I mean, it could have been a second yellow for sure. I thought his first yellow was kind of naughty as well. Looked kind of almost intentional, just kind of leaving that stud in there. So definitely fortunate in a timely substitution, I think, from Crawmer to not risk that further.
Yeah, good game overall. I think, like I said, I think the game really changed when you guys went down to 10 men, because I think you played better. It looked like you had a chip on your shoulder and you had to prove something. And you guys, it seemed like the play, they kept saying the possession was widely in our favor, but I think once you guys went down to 10 men, you guys started taking over and getting chance after chance against us. I was nervous the floodgates would open, and I would be like, this is going to be embarrassing to lose a man up and lose in a fashion, because that's what it seemed like it was going towards before we held on. But
it's bizarre, but part of it goes back to, and you asked earlier in the show how Reno likes to set up the team and play, and we play a lot of counterattack. And when we had Silas and we had Nico Gonzalez a few years ago, and you had all this speed, it made so much sense. So it's really bizarre that going down a man forces us to go counterattack even more. Yeah. And that's why a lot of us were really disappointed when Silas came off, because when he came off, there goes the one guy that can counter. But Jurassic has speed, and so maybe he can replicate that to a bit. So it goes to, if we're talking about our two clubs and what they can do to hopefully finish in 13th place or thereabouts, the thing that I really like about Stuttgart, and we've all said this about Pellegrino and the team, is mentality. Whether it's, we can't finish, we can't score a goal to save our lives, but the team doesn't give up. The team doesn't just stop fighting. And maybe they fight too much. There's maybe some composure issues that we have to deal with, a little bit. Dino Mavropanos booting that ball out.
Yeah, the booting. Yeah, exactly.
You're just kind of like, Dino, what are you doing? But the mentality of this team, and you guys said earlier, is Stuttgart plays actually really well when they go down a goal. It's really bizarre. So the thing that Reno has really tapped into this team, and why I think he can be a very successful manager, is I think he is tapped into the emotional and the mental part of them, that just because you make a mistake, you're not coming out, okay? You're not going to – I'm not going to lambaste you in the media. I'm not going to not start you the next match. He's going to trust the process, which is not a great thing that Americans like to hear. It's frustrating at times because a lot of us want example, Chris Furich, about 10 minutes into the match, I was texting the guys on our podcast. I'm like, please, we need to sit this guy down. We need to sit him down. So what does he do? He scores a goal. And then my buddies are like, you're a moron. This is why you're not the coach. And he is. So that's the thing that I love about my club, is the results may not be there every week. And we may have left some points on the board somewhere, but they have a mentality of never give up. And I know that's super cheesy, and I know that's super cliche, and it's Friday Night Lights and all that stuff. But I think for clubs like ours that are just hoping to be mid-table, that mentality part goes a long way. And I think all you have to do is look at a club like Augsburg, who should be relegated every single year. Yeah. But they're not. And some of it has
the fighting Caligiuris.
right. The flaming pineapples, as we call them in our show. But they figured something out. So that's what I really like about my club, is despite going down a man, they never gave up. They kept at it. It got really hairy there the last minute or two. Yeah. But you know what? All we got to worry about now is this little pesky club called Bayern coming up. So
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about, the counterattacking approach and the emphasis on that coming into this one, because I think it's actually probably maybe not advisable to take that approach against a team like Schalke, because once again, this is coming from like FB ref, so like this is like stats bomb stuff, but like Schalke, like 40% possession as in terms of like percentage of passes completed. So Schalke, one of the lowest possession teams in the Bundesliga, so it's going to be harder to counterattack us in general. And then the fact that you're saying like, hey, once you went down a man, you became more counter. That's probably because we had more possession once we had a man advantage, which we typically wouldn't have, which potentially opens it up for you on the counter. Because I mean, we kind of tend to like to do a lot of our best work in transition as well.
Yeah.
Not that we can occasionally break teams down in the final third, but it's a lot of Zalazar running free through the middle in transition and those sorts of things, or long ball up top to like Bolter or somebody on the wing to like play something in. So.
Yeah, I'm in a weird position because you guys have Bochum coming up, correct?
Yeah.
So, as a Stuttgart supporter, do we want the draw there? Do we want Schalke to get out the W? It's you guys have put me in a rough spot here. I'm not.
You want Simon to score again? Come on, a hat trick would be so nice.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're confident that Bochum is going to go down this season, then I think you probably want Bochum to pick up some points to hurt maybe what's potentially going to be a more direct, avoiding relegation rival in Schalke. That was not eloquently stated at all. Anyway,
Sound like me, Jack.
Well, I repeat what I said earlier in the show is that I am scared to death every Saturday. So no matter who we're playing, it's a little frightening.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you said end the game here. We did finish the game very well. Bolter got, as you mentioned, got stronger and stronger. Created two great opportunities at the end of the game. Both, I think, for Salazar. I think backdoor that he just missed. But ultimately, a good end to the result. Good end to the game, I should say, Jack. I'm okay with the results. Obviously, a win is what we wanted, but we didn't lose, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we're okay with the result. At least I am. I don't know about you.
I think we are as well, but I think my opinion of it changed a little bit later in the match because I felt as though it took us far too long to try to really go for the win after the man advantage took place. I felt like we were very
20 minutes of nothing for us.
Yeah, until those final couple minutes where we started attacking, and I was shocked by that. I don't know if that was once again the after effects of the Union Berlin loss. Where we're very concerned about, conceding a bunch of goals and losing in that position. I think Crawmer, maybe for his job, is I don't want to, lose this game with a man advantage or something along those lines. But at the same time, it's you have to pick up points when you can. That's the position you're in this season. You have to go for it sometimes. You're on the road. You have, your opponent at home down a man. You have to really go for it, in my opinion. I was disappointed. It didn't seem we had the intention or the emphasis early enough in that final phase of the game to secure it. But obviously, still could have gone our way regardless with, some of the chances that we ultimately had. I just wanted to ask briefly, just who did you think were kind of your men in the match on your side, on the Stuttgart side? For me, obviously, Silas for sure had a brilliant piece of footwork, maybe in the 75th minute as well in the box.
The whole defense.
Two or three people and got a shot off. Ridiculous feat, in addition to, all the work he was doing in behind earlier. Endo was very solid as well again. And then, of course, I think Anton in the center of defense was quite good. Additionally, who did you like in particular?
Yeah, we had our the OFC, our official fan club. We vote on a man of the match, and every week for the Offi Stuttgart, and it was Valdemar Anton this week is what everybody he just seemed this week to really just control the middle. He had some amazing tackles. Listen, Silas is awesome, and he had some amazing plays, and he's kind of in that mode now where he's going to shoot it no matter where he's at on the pitch, and I don't blame him, but Anton played really well. The weakness for us is we build out of the back a lot. That's not Valdemar Anton's strength. Mm-hmm. What his strength is breaking up plays, tackles, staring at people very intensely and just very meanly and intimidating on the back there. And so we thought he had a great match in the back. And that's kind of the interesting thing is we haven't been able to score goals. And the way I kind of compare Stuttgart to my friends who don't follow soccer is we're kind of like the New Orleans Saints of the late 2000s. And if you remember the New Orleans Saints of the late 2000s, Drew Brees was just throwing touchdowns left and right, but their defense was giving up touchdowns left and right. But the point was they would play bend but don't break. And I think the Stuttgart system is really based on that, is that we know we're going to give up goals, but we're going to score so many goals that you're going to have a hard time keeping up. And so I'm really impressed with how the defense has played, and Anton was the guy who played really well for us. We were talking from the Stuttgart perspective. Bolter was the man of the match for you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agreed with that or disagreed.
I tend to agree with that. To comments you made, he got stronger as the game went on. Had 2 great assists at the end of the game, or should have been assists, right? Just missed. And I think also an underrated player in the game, I think, is Tobias Moore, right? Thomas Owion struggling in the game. As his passes weren't that great. He wasn't doing much on the offensive end. Then gets injured. He has to come off. Tobias Moore, who doesn't normally play left back, gets put in that position, and immediately he's bombing down the pitch, making passes. He, I think, reignited the offense toward the end of that game, kind of led to Bolter being so successful on the right-hand side. You have, Bolter on one side and Moore on the other. So I think Moore, while he's not man of the match, I think he's very underestimated what he did in the game. And I think, obviously, Bolter, and then you got to give Terodde some love for getting his first goal. So I don't know, but what do you think, Jack?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Moore, a very willing runner in this game, a lot of overlapping runs, seemed very industrious on the left-hand side. Maybe part of that's because he usually plays a little bit higher, and so he's trying to, he's kind of in that mindset. But, along with Owion, actually has a pretty good left foot in terms of some of the delivery he can provide from wide areas, and just looked very solid and confident and composed in a way that some of our other players weren't as much. Larson, for example, had a couple good moments, but they seemed to come off the back of mistakes that he made. His good moments were recoveries from a better opportunity that he fluffed. There's a little bit of an inconsistency in touch and decision making at times with him that I think somebody like Moore came on and demonstrated a little bit more composure. Yeah, Bolter, we talked about this, the last podcast I was on. I was actually surprised so far how well Bolter has translated back to the Bundesliga. Because I was wondering if he was going to be one of those guys, kind of like Terodde potentially, who maybe would be more successful down low. But I think early on he's looked very much at home there and has been solid.
That's player.
I think Tom Kraus was pretty good as well. And Flick maybe a little bit more wayward in possession than we would typically expect of him, but I thought he was industrious as well, covered a lot of ground, was a physical presence, kind of a nuisance. So those are, I guess, kind of my general thoughts, and always nice to see Drexler involved. Like I said last season, maybe not the first guy, in the starting 11, but more often than not, a solid game with a couple of key passes or key moments, and that's the kind of thing that he can provide, and also has that edge. When we're talking about mentality and some of the more of those things, he's an important guy for that standpoint as well.
Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, you got Bayern next. We got Bochum. Early. What are you looking at that game? Are you just gonna lock up shop and try to park the bus for them? I mean, Union Berlin seemed to do that and it worked for them. And they got a draw in that game. What are you thinking going into this Bayern match?
I just don't think that's the way this club plays. I think in one level, I think we will. Yeah, I think we'll sit back and we'll try to counterattack. And this is the perfect club for us to counterattack against. I would imagine the possession for this one's going to be like a 70-30 type of thing for Bayern versus us. You guys know how this is. You go into this match, and if your kid has swim lessons that day, you go to the swim lessons instead of watching the match. If anything happens, it's positive. It's gravy. Bayern is just steamrolling teams this year, and so for Union to do what they did is kind of crazy. I'm not expecting much out of this. I think, like Eric said in the chat earlier, the Schalke match was kind of a lost opportunity for both of our clubs to pick up more than just 1 point. For us, though, I think it's a little bit okay because we're going into Bayern and you're expecting to pick up exactly 0 points in that match. For you guys, you have Bochum the next week, and that's, I think, almost a must win. I'm a little disappointed because we're coming out of the Cologne match and the Schalke match with 2 points out of potential 6, really. But going into Bayern, listen, the last time we played them in the first half of the season, they went down a man with 15 minutes in the match. And then we ended up losing 6-1 being down a man. So my expectations aren't too much. I want us to get out of the match healthy. That's it, because we have Frankfurt the next week. And I think that's an intriguing one because I can't figure them out yet. My only hope is Bayern takes it light on us. They look at the schedule and they're like, this is a 12th place team on the league. They haven't won a match.
Do they play Champions League this week, Bayern? Because they could rest some guys.
I'm gonna hope. I'm gonna tell them they are.
They're gonna rest Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
It's funny, they rest guys, but the guys that they play,
this is good.
It could start for our club. So
yeah.
Here's what's going to happen. Stuttgart's going to win 4-3. It's going to be a C-less brace with goals from Amada and Endo as well. And then Schalke's going to lose to Bochum inexplicably, and that's what's going to happen.
Crawmer out.
From your ears, from your mouth to Fritzl's ears, right there.
Jack, what do you think about for a Bochum coming up this weekend? I mean, it's got to be a must-win, right?
No, it kind of is. Yeah. I mean, winless in our first 5. You're playing a team that's very much struggling, manager on the hot seat, bottom of the table. Have to have it. There's no more analysis that needs to take place than that. Like, that's a game that you need to win. If you want to stay up in the league, it's the kind of thing you have to take advantage of. Potentially missed opportunity against Stuttgart this past weekend. Need to right the ship. So hopefully we do that.
Do you think the losing club loses their manager too?
Yes.
Possible. Yeah, I think it's possible.
I do. Especially for us, going into the River Derby. I mean, I guess you also don't want to go to River Derby with a new manager, but depends who the manager is, right? If it's Mike Buskins, you got a chance. But yeah, I agree with Jack. I think we need to attack. We can't sit back and try to play counter. Even though we are better on the counter, we got to put it to. And I think, whether it's Salazar or Bulter or whomever, we got to attack this team and take our opportunities, because a loss is not going to end well for not only for our fans, but probably for the manager as well. So we'll see. But Travis, thank you for joining us. We want to give you a little chance to plug away and talk about yourself and your podcast. And floor is yours.
All right. Well, it's Valpy Stuart. Americana is the podcast. You can reach us at Valpy Americana on Twitter, at Valpy Americana on the internet, as they call it. I like long walks on the beach in the sunset, and I support a club that is probably going to give me a heart attack way before my life expectancy should go. But love them to death. Love your guys' show. Guys, thanks so much for having me on. It's been a blast.
Oh, awesome. Jack, anything, anyone you want to plug or anything?
No, just once again, thank you for joining us. It's nice, we don't have guests on as much as we should, and it's nice to get some collaboration going again between various, kind of American-based Bundesliga podcasts. I think that's great for, like I said, like the promotion of the league and the culture over here and everything. So that's fantastic. So pleasure talking to you as well, and appreciate you taking time out of your Monday to join us. For me, you can find me on Twitter at JMMangan, JMMangan on Twitter. Richard, once again, 5 for 5, just rolling through that handle like nobody's business. Are you gonna fluff it? You gonna mess it up this time?
Maybe you should lead Schalke. Yeah, maybe you should lead Schalke better than Crawmer at this point. No, Travis, I want to echo the sentiments that Jack shared, and if you want us to return the favor, we can certainly. But good luck to you guys the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll see. I know we'll see you guys again, right? We'll be back at our home this time. But you can follow me at R_KHARMAN. The handle is right there. All right. Well, for Travis, for Jack, for the chat, thank you for bringing it to this evening, and we'll catch you guys on the live stream or at the next podcast. See you then. Glück auf.